Hey everybody, this is Mr. McKee again with SEC 210. Today I'm going over lab 4.4.4, which is locating log files. Now before you freak out on the amount of pages in this lab, just know there is 16 pages, but there is a lot of uh, all this log information, all these log entries take up a lot of the space. So don't freak out yet. Alright, and there is 6 questions to answer in here. Alright, so log files, also spelled log files, are files used by computers to log events. Alright, pretty standard stuff. Software programs, background processes, services, or transactions between services, including the operating system itself, may generate such events. Log files are dependent on the application that generates them. It is up to the application developer to conform to log file convention. Software documentation should include information on its log files. Alright, so step 1 is web server log file example. Alright, because log files are essentially a way to track specific events, the type of information stored varies depending on the application or services generating the events. Consider the single log entry below. It is generated by Apache, a popular web server. Alright. The single log entry above represents a web event recorded by Apache. A few pieces of information are important in web transactions, including client IP address, time, and details of the transaction. The entry above can be broken down into 5 parts. Alright. Timestamp. This part records when the event took place. It is very important that the server clock is correctly synchronized, as it allows for accurate cross-referencing and tracing back events. Alright, type. This is the type of event. In this case, it's an error. Alright, PID. This contains information about the process ID used by Apache at the moment. Alright, client. This records the IP address of the requesting client, which is right there. Alright, description. This contains the description of the event. And it says file does not exist, this favicon.icon or ICO. Alright. Based on the log entry above, describe what happened. Alright. You should be able to look right there and understand what it had. Notice PID, timestamp. Let's see, type of event. It's an error right there. Client right there. Description. Right? And that's really it. PID. I think the PID and maybe thread ID, TID. Okay. Use the cat command below to list a web server sample log file. The sample log file is located in the var log directory. Alright, so let's go down here, open our terminal. Alright, cat. So when we use cat, it's going to display it in the terminal. var log log stash tutorial.log. Alright, a whole bunch of jumbled mess of stuff. Alright, make this a little bigger. Alright, notice I can go way up. There's a bunch of log file entries. Alright. Alright, so is the output above still considered a web transaction? Alright, so is the above, I just said that, but is the output above still considered a web transaction? If you look through here, like one event, notice that's the client IP address, the timestamp. It was a GET request to get that page, or that was a PNG file. And and some other stuff. It shows what browser they're using, machine, etc. That looks like the end of that's a complete entry. All right. Still considered a web transaction. You can tell because it's HTML. Explain why the output of the cat command is in a different format than the single entry shown in item A. And it might be a different web server doing that, but yeah, I mean it can be formatted based on how the programmer decided to do the log file output. All right, so operating system log file example. Any software can keep log files, including the operating system itself. Conventionally, Linux uses the var log directory to store various log files, including operating system files. Modern operating systems are complex pieces of software and therefore use several different files to log events. This section takes a quick look at the verilog messages file, stored under var log, which we're already under. And to get out of this, I can do Control C to get it back to my my terminal line. All right. The connection of a new USB drive, a network card becoming available, and too many missed root login attempts are a few examples of event logged in the var log messages file. Use the more command to display the contents of that file. Unlike the cat command, more allows for a paced navigation through the file. Press enter to advance line by line, or space to advance an entire page. Press Q or Control plus C to abort and exit more. All right. Note the sudo command is required because messages file belongs to the root user. All right. So this is like really jumbled. That's really hard to look at using cat. And if we do sudo more var log messages. All right. CBROPS. All right, so if we start here, all right, so we can press enter. This is going to work for me here. All right, so you press enter, it goes line by line, and space goes the entire page. All right, you can do page up a long ways. All right. So notice that the events listed above are very different from web server events. They're a lot shorter. All right. But still notice timestamp, things like that. All right. Because the operating system itself is generating this log, all recorded events are in relation to the OS itself. All right. If necessary, enter Control C to exit out of the previous command. Control C. Back to the command line. All right, log files are very important for troubleshooting. Assume that a user of that specific system reported that all network operations were slow around 4:20 a.m. on May 19th. Can you find evidence of that in the log entries shown above? So 4:20 on the 19th. I may have ended it. I'll have to go back. All right. Page down. All right, so I'm getting in March 22nd. All right, May 19th. Alright, so let me do one thing. Let me go back. Don't worry about my grip right now. Alright, so notice how if I tab down or page down with the spacebar, there are so many entries it's crazy. So I'm going to do Control C. It really didn't say to do this, but if we do a filter using grep, alright, and if we do sudo more, go to messages, and put a pipe in there and do grep, this is what I decided to do just to see how many entries there were. Alright, notice there's still a whole bunch of entries, but there's not as many. Alright, and it's saying, let's see, log files that were assume that a user of that specific system reported that all network operations were slow around 4:20 a.m. Alright, so 4:20 a.m. on May 19th. Let's see if I can go up and find 4:20. Well, it really doesn't have 4:20. So then 4:20 a.m. Now what we could do is do network May 19th. May 18th, May 19th. Alright, alright, we're getting closer, let's see. 4:20? Alright, notice here, around 4:20 he started to lose connection. Let's see. Lost carrier, that's 4:19, 4:20. Alright, can you find evidence of that in the log entries shown above? Yeah, we can see it was going up and down. The network card was flapping. Alright, if so, what lines? It doesn't actually show the lines, but you can just put down there that that's when it happened. Alright. Now we can get it into where it actually shows you lines too, and we did that in the previous lab, but I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna try to make this video fairly short, hopefully, since we're on page 2 of 16. But that's how you'll do that. It doesn't show you use the grep command, but that's definitely a winner, right? All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clear this out. All right, the CyberOps Workstation VM includes Nginx, a lightweight web server. This section will show how to find and display Nginx logs using CyberOps Workstation VM. Nginx was installed on the CyberOps Workstation with its default settings. With the default settings, its global configuration file is located under etc in nginx.config. Its access log file is at access.log in that same directory, or I'm sorry, var log nginx access.log, and errors are redirected to the terminal window. However, it is common for a security analyst to work on computers in which the installation details for tool and services are unknown. This section describes the process of locating such files described for Nginx, but is by no means complete. Alright, nevertheless, it should be a good exercise about locating and displaying log files on unfamiliar systems. When working with the new software, the first step is to look at the documentation. It provides important information about the software, including information about its log files. Use the man command to display the Nginx manual page. So man Nginx. Alright, so this shows what it is. HTTP and reverse proxy server, mail proxy server. Alright, look down through here. Here's something about log files. Signals, can handle the following signals. There's log files. Let's see. Debugging log. And that's it. All right. So scroll down to the page to locate the Nginx logging section. The documentation makes it clear that Nginx supports logging with the location of its log files defined at compilation time. So right where I showed you guys, debugging log, all right, that's where it's talking about. Okay. All right, and then set the debug level of the error log, path to log, debug. All right, the manual page also contains information on the files used by Nginx. Scroll down further to display the Nginx operating files under the files section. All right, so see right there. All right, notice error log path. Error log file, the main configuration file. All right, the outputs above help you to conclude that Nginx supports logging and that it can save the log files. The output also hints at the existence of a configuration file for Nginx. Before looking for Nginx files, use the ps and the grep commands to ensure Nginx is running in the VM. All right, note, and let's do Q. All right, so we're going to look for a process, AX, pipe, grep, Nginx. All right, looks like it's running. All right, the output above confirms that Nginx is running. In addition, the output also displays the parameters used when Nginx was started. Nginx process ID is stored in run nginx.pid, and error message are being redirected to the terminal. And notice this third entry, that's when I actually searched for it. All right, if Nginx is not running, either the sudo user sbin nginx at the prompt to start the service using the default configuration. Sorry, enter it there. If you need to restart Nginx, you can kill the service by using the sudo pkill nginx command. To start Nginx with a custom configuration from a previous lab, run the following command and test the server by opening the web server and going to URL 8080. All right, I'm going to skip through some of this. By design, the CBROPS workstation VM utilizes default locations and definitions as much as possible. Conventionally, The var log directory holds various log files for various applications and services, while configuration files are stored under the etc directory. While the Nginx manual page does not provide an exact location for its log files, it is only confirmed that Nginx supports logging, but it also hinted at the location of the configuration file. Because the log file locations can often be customized in configuration files, the logical next step is to use the ls command to look under etc to look for the Nginx configuration file. Alright, so list etc. Alright, we're looking. Yeah, it's right there. Right, that's a directory. Alright. Notice the Nginx folder under etc in the output above. Use ls again. We find the number of files, including one named nginx.config. Alright, so let's do up arrow and go to Nginx. Oh, actually, they wanted to do a long form. L. Right, there we go. Nginx.config, right there. Use the cat command to list the contents of nginx.config. You can also use more or less to view the file, and nano or skite to edit it. These tools make it easier to navigate through long text files. Only the output of cat is displayed below. So let's use cat just because it's not that large. Cat etc nginx nginx.config. Alright, here's our config file. Well, it's a little bit bigger. Some of the outputs omitted. Lines that start with the pound sign are comments and are ignored by Nginx. So up here, this is what you're seeing right here. All right, a quick look at the configuration file reveals that it is an Nginx configuration file. Because there's no direct mention to the location of Nginx log files, it is very likely that Nginx is using default values for it. Following the convention of storing log files under var log, use the ls command to list its contents. Alright, so Control C to get out of there. List long version var log. Alright. We find Nginx in a log. Looks like a log file right there. As shown above, the var log directory has a subdirectory named Nginx. Use the ls command again to list the contents of var log Nginx. Alright, so var log Nginx. Alright. So because the var log Nginx belongs to the HTTP user, you must execute ls as root by preceding it with the sudo command. No, we didn't have to do that. Alright, no, I didn't have to do that. Right. These are very likely to be the log files in use by Nginx. Move on to the next section to monitor these files and get confirmation that they are indeed Nginx log files. Your output may be different. The .gz log files are generated by a log rotation service. Linux systems are often implement a service to rotate logs, ensuring that the individual log files do not become too large. Alright, notice that there's actually 5 of them there. Alright. The log rotate service takes the latest log file, compresses it, and saves it under a different name. All right, the new empty main log file is then created and used to store the latest log file entries. All right. All right, so monitoring log files in real time. As seen in the previous sections, log files can be displayed with many text presentation tools. While cat, more or less, and nano can be used to work with log files, they are not suitable for log file real-time monitoring. Developers design various tools that allow for log file real-time monitoring. Some tools are text-based, while others have a graphical interface. This lab hugs its own tail, a simple but efficient tool available in practically every Unix-based system. The CBROPS Workstation VM uses a log rotating system to ensure the older logs are archived. By the time this lab gets used in class, some time will have passed and the log files will likely have been rotated. The result is that some log files, including the access.log file, could appear empty. To work around this problem and create some entries in access.log, simply open Firefox in the VM, point it to 127.0.0.1 and reload the page a few times. Alright, before we do that though, I'm going to go sudo tail var log nginx access.log CBROPS. Whoops, CBROPS. Oh. Yeah, and you spell it right, T-A-I-L. Alright, now, there we go. Alright, so we got some entries. Notice it's our localhost, date, 1 September today. Got some entries in there. If you do not see any log entries, navigate to 127.0.0.1 and we've already done that. Use the N option to specify how many lines from the end of the file tail should display. So sudo tail number of lines 5. Alright. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, let's see if there might not even be more than 5. Is there 10? No, there's only 5 in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. So you can use the tail command with the F option to monitor the Nginx access.log in real time. Short for follow -F tells tail to continuously display the end of the given text file. In the terminal window, issue tail with the F option. Alright, so we're going to do this. F option, verify that that's right. Alright. We're not going to see the cursor because it's going to stay on. Okay. So now, as before, tail displays the last 10 lines of the file. However, notice that tail does not exit after displaying the lines. The command prompt is not visible, and indicating that tail is still running. Alright. So with that still running in the terminal as it is, click the web browser icon on the dock. To open a web browser window. Resize the web browser window in a way that allows you to see the bottom of the terminal window. I may be able to do that. Alright. Okay, I'm going to go there. Notice how we got another entry. I don't have the internet connection right now, so it's not going to go anywhere else, but it gave us another entry, which was literally just now. 1744, right, several seconds ago. All right. All right, so there's our new entry it's talking about. Because till is still running, it should display the new entry at the bottom of the terminal window, which it did. Aside from the timestamp, your entry should look like the one above. All right. More or less it does, yes. Okay, let's see. Firefox stores pages in cache for future use. If the page is already in cache, force Firefox to ignore the cache and place web requests. Reload the page. Alright, let's see. History. Clear history. I'm going to clear all that stuff. And it says Control-Shift-R. Alright. Because the log file is being updated in Nginx, we can state with certainty that is in fact the access.log is in fact the log file in use by Nginx. Enter Control-C to end the tail monitoring session. Control-C. Alright, we got our terminal back. Alright. So step 2, bonus tool, journal. I'll say journal control, journalctl. Alright, the CBROPS workstation is based on Arch Linux. Categorized as a Linux distribution, Arch Linux is designed to be lightweight, minimal, and simple. As part of the design philosophy, Arch Linux uses systemd as its init system. In Linux, the init process is the first process loaded when the computer boots for initialization. Init is directly or indirectly a parent of all processes running on the system. It is started by the kernel at boot time and continues to run until the computer shuts down. Typically, init has the process ID number 1. The init system is a set of rules and conventions governing the way the user space in a given Linux system is created and made available to the user. Init systems also specify system-wide parameters such as global configuration, files, logging structure, and service management. Systemd is a modern init system designed to unify Linux configuration and service behavior across all Linux distributions and has been increasingly adopted by major Linux distributions. Arch Linux relies on systemd for init functionality. The CBROPS workstation VM also uses systemd. Alright, system journald, or simply journald. The systemd's event logging service and uses append-only binary files, serving as its log files. Notice that journald does not impede the use of other logging systems such as syslog and rsyslog. This section provides a brief overview of journal control and journald utility for log viewing and real-time monitoring. Whoa, that's a lot of reading. Alright, in a terminal window in the CBROPS workstation VM, issue the journal control command with no options to display all journal log entries. Alright, I'm going to do clear first. Alright, journal control. Alright, notice. Alright, there's our output. The output begins with a line similar to the one below, marking the timestamp where the system started logging. Alright, so it looks like March 20th at 1610. Alright. Journal control includes the number of functionalities such as page scrolling, color-coded messages, and more that use the keyboard up and down arrows to scroll up and down the output one line at a time. Use the left and right keyboard arrow keys to scroll sideways and display log entries that span beyond the boundaries of the terminal window. The enter key displays the next line, while the spacebar displays the next page. So that's pretty standard. All right, press the Q key to exit journal control. All right, the message reminds you that because analyst is a regular user and not a member of either the admin, system, journal, or wheel groups, not all log entries will be displayed by journal control. It also states that running journal control with the Q option suppresses the hint message. Can you run journal control and see all the log entries? Not as analyst, but as the root we could. Right, so what I could do if I do Control C, alright, if I did sudo CBROPS, notice now you don't get that error message because it's showing all the logs. I'm going to do Control C, I'm going to go back and take out sudo. Alright, now you're currently not seeing messages from other users and the system. Users in group admin and systemd journal wheel can see all messages. Alright, so that answers that. Journal control includes options to help in filtering the output. Use the B option to display boot-related log entries. Alright, so let me break out of this. Sudo journal control. Alright, so boot related entries right there. Alright, to see entries related to the last boot, add the number 1 to the command above. To see entries related to the last 2 boots, add the number 2 option. Alright, so if we did a B and a number 1, last boot, alright, and then you can put a 2 for the last 2 boots. Alright, use the list boots option to list previous boots. Alright, so sudo ctl -- list boots. Alright, so this lists all the boots. The last boot was today at 11:04 Eastern Time. Pretty cool. Alright. And you can use the -- since in the time range to specify the time range of which log entries should be displayed. The 2 commands below display all log entries generated in the last 2 hours and in the last day, respectively. Alright, so you can do last 2 hours. Control C. Alright. So we're not doing list boot anymore, we're doing since 2 hours. Bingo. Alright, notice 2 hours. there's a whole bunch already. Alright, since last day. Alright, journal control also allows for displaying log entries related to specific service with the -u option. The command below displays log entries related to Nginx. So if we did, oops, there we go. So we wanted to find Nginx service. All right, that's everything related to service. So there was 168 of the lines in there. All right. As part of systemd, services are described as units. Most service installation packages create units and enable units during the installation process. Similar to TIL, F option, journal control, also supports real-time monitoring. Use the F option to instruct journal control to follow a specific log. All right. And then you can do that right there. I'm going to skip over that. All right. Journal control also supports mixing options to achieve the desired filter set. The command below monitors Nginx system events in real time. All right, remember the F for it follows it. So they've added a U option and an F option there. Keep the command above running, open a new browser window and type. All right, so let's do this last entry. All right, so we want to do U nginx.service and F. All right, so now it's watching, it's following what we're doing. On the web server, keep the above command running, open a new web browser window, close this down, open another one. All right, and type in 127.0.0.1. All right, it should display an error related to the missing favicon.ico file in real time, which it didn't, or did it? It should be showing that kind of like this one right here, but for some reason we're not getting that. I didn't get that for the last some of the last steps either. So anyways, I'm gonna, this already 43 minutes on this lab. All right, so reflection, log files are extremely important for troubleshooting. Log file location follows convention, but ultimately is the choice of the developer. More often than not, log file information, such as location, file names, etc., is included in the documentation. If the documentation does not provide useful information on log files, a combination of web research and system investigation should be used. If you're on the National Cyber League competition with us, yes, you will do a lot of that. Clocks should always be synchronized with NTP protocol. All right, to ensure all systems have the correct time. If clocks are not correctly set, it is very difficult to trace back events. All right, it is important to understand when specific events took place. In addition to that, events from different sources are often analyzed at the same time. So very important. All right, but that's it. Very long lab, 16 pages, but you need to answer the 6 questions. And that is it. Remember, next week I'll start actually asking for screenshots, but I'm not going to do that this week. Especially since right now our internet's down. We've had a big outage here, so it's going to be a while before I can upload this video. But I will talk to you guys later. Thanks.